On page 124. Today we have two major topics. The first one, we're going to be continuing to discuss the different levels. We saw yesterday there's a machloket between Abaye and Rava. Abaye, there was more machmir in each of the levels, and Rava is more lenient on each of the levels. Here it's going to be between not Abaye, but instead Rabba and Rava. Rabba is the third generation from Pumbedita, and Rava is a fourth generation, his student, but in Mechoza. But their machlokets are parallel. So that's what we're going to start with, the various levels and those two different views. We're going to bring a couple of proofs for one view, a couple of disproofs, and a couple of proofs for those views. And then the next Mishnah is going to be speaking about broken pieces of vessels. Do they retain their status of the vessel and you can use them? Or once it's broken, does it become mukseh? Interesting question. All right, we start with the Mishnah, which is kind of vague and says, Kol hakelim nitalin lesorech ve'shelo lesorech. Any vessel can be used for its specified use or for any use. It's kind of vague. We're going to see this talking about a kli shemelachto leheter, a vessel that you can use, that is used for permitted uses. You can use it for other purposes as well. Rabbi Nechemia Omer, en nitalin ela lesorech. Rabbi Nechemia is machmir. He's the most machmir in mukseh. He says you can only use it for its designated purpose. If it's remember example of a key, you can only use it to open a door. You can't use it for prying open a lid. All right, that's what the Mishnah says. And because the Mishnah is vague, we're going to have two opinions about how to unpack it. My letzorech, my shelo letzorech. How do you define these terms? So Rabbah is the first view, and again, Rabbah is from student Abaye is also from Pumbedita, so they're more machmir. Rava, we're going to see in the next paragraph from Mechoza, is more mekel, and Halacha is going to follow the more mekel opinion. So Amar Rabbah, letzorech means davar shemelachto leheter letzorech gufo. So an item of permitted use to use for itself, a bowl to put stuff in. Shelo letzorech, davar shemelachto leheter letzorech mekomo. So I can use it not for its sake. If the bowl is in a spot where I want to sit, I'm allowed to move. I'm not using it for its own sake, but rather because I want the spot. Both of those are allowed in the first category of davar shemelachto leheter. The second category, davar shemelachto leisur, like a hammer, lesorech gufo in. If I want to use it to open nuts, I can. Lesorech mekomo la. If the hammer is on a chair and I want to sit, then I cannot, because that's considered shelo lesorech. It's not their use of it. Afilu davar shemelachto leheter, lesorech gufo in, lesorech mekomo la. This is even something that is permitted use. I can only use it for its purpose. Can use a key, but if a key or a bowl was on the table and I want to move it away because I want space, no, I can't do that. I can only move it to use it itself. Okay, so that's all the opinion of Rabbah. Rabbah, right, with a dagesh in the bet and a head at the end. Amale Rava, I know it's a little confusing. They have similar names, and even in manuscripts, often their names are written the wrong one, and you got to go back and figure out who is it talking about. And the printed editions are a little better, but even there, they get mixed up. But there are two different sages, and when they're machloket against each other, it can get confusing. So we'll try to make sure to say Rabbah is the first one, and Rava is the second one. Lesorech mekomo shelo lesorech karetle. Rava asks, is saying that if I need its spot, that's called shelo lesorech. Right back in the Mishnah, it says you can move anything for purpose or for no purpose. If I need the space where it is, then that should be also called for a good purpose. So he disagrees with that categorization. Instead, he has another one. He says as follows: Ela amar Rava lesorech davar shemelachto leheter. Ben lesorech gufo, ben lesorech mekomo. So for using something that's melachto leheter, like a key, I can use it for its designated purpose, or because I need its space. I can use it for any heter purpose, or because of its space. All that is letzorech. And shelo letzorech means even to protect it. If it's an item that is ruined because it's out in the sun, maybe a pillow or something, and then I can move it into the shade. That's for to not because I need it or only because I want to protect it. All that is allowed. So moving it from the sun to shade or to protect it if it's on the heater or something, and all of that would not be allowed according to Rabbah, but is allowed according to Rabbah. The second category, like a hammer, that's usually used for prohibited purposes, I can use it lesorech gufo or lesorech mekomo. So you see, I can use the hammer to crack open nuts, and I can move it off the chair. That's okay. The only difference is that a hammer, if it's in a place where it's going to get ruined, I cannot move it for its to protect it. That's the first. That's a Tanakama. לצורך גופו ולצורך מקומו. אם מחמה לעשה לו, נחמיה is a little more mahmir. He says even something that is used for heter purposes, like a key, I can use it for itself. I can't move it. I can use it for itself and I can move it. I just can't move it to protect it. Right? So everything becomes one level higher, more lenient according to Rava as compared to Rabbah. Good. Now we're going to have three questions on Rava on the lenient opinion, but then we're going to have a couple of proofs for him also. So Yatib Rav Safra, Rav Acha, Rav Huna. I'm sorry, the first question is actually about Rabbah, the stringent opinion. So these rabbis were sitting all together, Rav Huna, Bar Chanina, and they were discussing these halachot. And Rabbah, Ali if we follow Rabbah, the stringent opinion, and his version, his interpretation of Rabbi Nechemia in the Mishnah, who is the stringent interpretation, we're going the stringent of the stringent, how could a person who followed that possibly clean off the dirty dishes on the table? See the problem? If I have dirty dishes on the table, I now want to clean them off. Why? So what am I cleaning them off for? Because I want the space. Well, that's klisha melachto leheter. It's a bowl, a dish. I can use it for a heter. But according to Rabbah, in the view of Rabbi Nechemia, even in that category, klisha melachto leheter, I can only move it if I want to use it itself, not because I need the space. So that means I have to leave the dirty dishes on the table the whole Shabbat. But obviously, no one does that. So how would they move the dishes? This is another exception that we saw already, like a chamber pot. Chamber pot is a disgusting item, and therefore it's permitted as an exception, even though technically it would be mukseh. We're allowed to get rid of it because it smells and you don't want it there. So this is the same, dirty dishes. That's why you're allowed to get rid of it. Okay, good. So then we have a successful answer to that question about Rabbah. This exchange where Rav Safra is among the discussants and he gives the answer was then quoted later by Rabbah himself. Amar le Abaye le Rabbah. Rav Safra is a contemporaneous. So one time Abaye, the student of Rabbah, asked him. Abaye and Rabbah are both in the school of Pumbedita. Abaye is the fourth generation, the student of Rabbah. That's probably why they have similar points of view. So the student asked the teacher, Lemor, according to you, Rabbah, how do we remove dirty dishes from the table? He's asking himself. Our friend Rav Safra already explained it because it's like a chamber pot. So very good. See, they asked this question here. According to Rabbah, Rabbah wasn't around. Rav Safra succeeded in giving an answer. That answer made it back to Rabbah, who said, oh, good point. And when he was asked himself, he quoted his friend Rav Safra. You see how the rabbis all got together and helped each other to resolve questions. Okay, so that was the challenge to Rabbah. Now we have three challenges to Rabbah. Itive Abaye. Abaye asked Rabbah. Metocha, we know this case already. We saw it. A mortar, which is usually some kilim melachto leisur, because you use it for grinding. Im yesh bashum metaltinotav, it already had garlic in it, so then you can move it because you're moving the garlic. Bim lav, it's empty, and metaltinotav, you cannot move it, even though you're going to want it to use it to put the hina in it. So it can't because It's kli shemelachto leisur. So what are you talking about, Rava? According to you, it should be okay to move it for any reason, even if you just want the space. So what's the problem? Oh, that case, this baraita is talking about was when I want to move it to the shade because it was in the sun, it was going to get ruined. And there, even Rava is machmir. The second question from the continuation of that baraita. They agree that if you used it on Yom Tov too, on that pestle, which is allowed as an exception because of Simchat Yom Tov, but you can't move it for anything else. And so why not? Why can't I use the pestle for something else according to Yudava? Shouldn't I be allowed to use it if I want to use it for something else or if I need the space? So what's wrong? We're talking about when I'm moving it to protect it. But you're right, if I wanted to move it for its space, I would be able. Okay, good. So we resolved those questions, and now we have yet another question. This question certainly applies to, might even apply to Abaye, even though the translation here says that Abaye asked it, but we don't know who's asking it. Okay, the Talmud is asking from the following case. It's a Mishnah in Masechet Besa, the fourth Perek. So we're talking about on Yom Tov. It says, "V'haditnan en somchin et hakedera bebakat v'chen badelet." If I take a piece of wood on Yom Tov, now a piece of wood on Yom Tov is usable because I'm allowed to make a fire on Yom Tov for cooking. But yet the Mishnah says I cannot take a piece of wood and use it to prop up a pot that's unstable, or to prop open a door. I'm not allowed to do that. Now that's what the Mishnah said. We wonder about this. So, but this is something that can be used. So why tell me I can't use the piece of wood for another good purpose if I'm allowed to use it on Yom Tov? It should not be. You see from this Mishnah that even something that is usable for one purpose, in other words, to make a fire, I'm not allowed to use for any other purpose or even for its space. Right? So this is a very machmir, and this would go against Rava, so for sure against Rava, and even against Rabba. So how are we going to resolve this? He says, you're right, really on Yom Tov that should be allowed. And really you are allowed to use something usable for another purpose. But in this case, we make a gezerah. Because on Shabbat, a piece of wood would be mukseh, because you cannot make a fire on Shabbat. So the rabbis make a gezerah and says that piece of wood, you can use it to make a fire on Yom Tov, but you cannot use it for any other purpose on Yom Tov, because then you're going to forget. And on Shabbat, you're going to go and use a piece of wood to prop them open the door, because you remember that on Yom Tov did it. You're not going to remember the whole step, the whole process, that you're only allowed to use it on Yom Tov to prop open the door, because you could use a piece of wood for a fire. So therefore, they made a gezerah. So that's the only reason why it's asud on Yom Tov. Okay, good. So that's a successful answer. But we're going to get a little bit more complicated by quoting a couple of more Mishnayot. וכי תמה שבת גופה תשתרה, דהה דבר שמלאכתו לאיסור לצורך גופו ולצורך מקומו שרה. Hold on. You said that you can't do this on Yom Tov. You can't prop open the door because it gets it out of Shabbat. How about on Shabbat itself? On Shabbat, why can't you do it? I understand it's mukseh. Okay, it's mukseh because I can't make a fire on Shabbat. So it's kalisha melachto leisur. So what? I want to use it for a heter purpose, or I want to use its space. I should be allowed, according to Rava, right? Both of those categories are permitted even on Shabbat. So why would I make a gezerah? Answer: Hanemile, hechad ika torat keli alav, hechad eleka torat keli alav la. Now this is a very important principle. We only say that davar shemelachto leisur I can use for a heter purpose, but a piece of wood is even less. It's not even a utensil, right? It's just a branch, or just a board. So something that's not even a utensil. Remember, we had those four categories yesterday. This is the lowest category. This is called mukseh mechamat gufo. It itself is inherently mukseh because it's not. So therefore, I did not have it in mind at all. Not right. At least a hammer, I know I'm not going to use it to build something, but kind of have it implied intention that I might use it to open something, to open a nut. But this is even less. Okay, so that's a very important principle we learned, that worse than being a hammer is being not a utensil at all. And so that's the reason why on Shabbat, I cannot use the pieces of wood, and because Shabbat is not allowed to make a gezerah on Yom Tov. We're going to go into a slightly more general question about the relationship between Shabbat and Yom Tov, which is very interesting. Is there a difference between Shabbat and Yom Tov? Or are the halachot mostly the same? So, Umikazrinan, is it true that we make a gezerah from Yom Tov to Shabbat, from Shabbat to Yom Tov? Batinan, mashili Yom Tov, avalo b'Shabbat. In those days, they used to take, when the fruit season came, they had all the fruit, only so much fruit you could eat, and you wanted to preserve some for the winter. So they would put it on their roof in the summer, and it would dry out, and then they have dried apricots and dried everything else, and collect it. So what if you have your fruit up on the roof, and all of a sudden it starts raining, and all the fruit's gonna be ruined. So on Yom Tov, this Mishnah says, Mishnah in Perek He of Masechet Pesach, you can go up to the roof and gather up all the fruit that's drying and throw it down a skylight. Even though that's tircha, it's a bit of work to do, but they want to save, be helpful in saving your money. You can do that on Yom Tov, but you cannot do that on Shabbat. Shabbat is more strict than Yom Tov. So what's the point? What do you see from this Mishnah? You see that the laws of Shabbat and laws of Yom Tov are not the same. Shabbat is more strict, and we don't say a gezerah that can't do it on Yom Tov because he can't do it on Shabbat. So you just solved this whole problem before by making a gezerah. But here's a case where we don't make a gezerah from Yom Tov to Shabbat. So that's our question. Now we're going to complicate it a little bit more with the third Mishnah, also in Masechet Pesach, the fifth Perek. There's Umi lo gazrinan v'atanan and ben Yom Tov the Shabbat ela ochel nefesh bilbad. Famous Mishnah. There is no difference between Yom Tov and Shabbat except for food, except for preparing food. Right? On Yom Tov, you're allowed to cook and do all steps you need to have. On Shabbat, you're not allowed. But that's the only difference between them. In all other ways, they are the same. And this would actually contradict the previous Mishnah here, which says you're allowed to save the dried fruit on Yom Tov, but not on Shabbat. Right, and according to this Mishnah, the last one, it sounds like you would make them the same law throughout, except for preparing food. And so now we gotta solve this. Okay.
What about carrying?
Right, good, very very good point, and that's going to come up in a second. Right, carrying, it seems as also part of food. That point is like you're preparing food, and then you're going to carry it to your grandma. You're going to carry it to your friend, and that's why carrying is allowed, so that you can bring food and gifts and to celebrate Yom Tov better. It's kind of included in it. Yeah.
Food driven.
That's a very good point. That must be also part of Ochel Nefesh. Actually, what we're going to see, that's a fantastic question. Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai have an argument. I want to explain it now just because you just said that. Whereas, what are you allowed to carry? Bet Shammai says you can only carry food. Right? Because it's all part of food. Bet Hillel says you can carry anything you want, anything that you're going to use, right? Even a book, even the person, a child, whatever, you can carry anything. But really, Bet Hillel is the older original law that has to do specifically with food. Bet Hillel just broadens it because of that. Okay, fantastic point. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to assume that, in fact, we do make gezerot, and we do try to make Shabbat and Yom Tov the same. They are the same. And that this Mishnah would also explain the previous Mishnah, the first one that we started with, that the pieces of wood, you cannot use them on Shabbat and you cannot use them on Yom Tov, gezerah, so you can't use them to prop open the door. And we're going to try to explain as an exception the middle case, that you can save fruit by throwing it down. So we're going to have two attempts at explaining this middle case that you can save the dried fruit on Yom Tov. Amar Rav Yosef la kashya, ha Rabbi Eliezer, ha Rabbi Yehoshua. Let's see. The Tanya, we saw this baraita already actually. Otovet ben noshen aflu labor. Rabbi Eliezer omer ma'alet harishon, ba'amenat l'shochato v'shochato. Asheni oseh lo parnasa b'mkomo b'shvil shelo yemut. We saw this really fascinating case that if two animals fall into a cistern, a hole on Shabbat, on Yom Tov, and normally if there's two animals there, you can't pick them up for no reason because that's a lot of effort to bring them up. But you can pull them out if you plan to kill them and eat them. because you're allowed to do that on Yom Tov. The problem here is that the animals are a mother and its offspring, and you're not allowed to do shechita. You can't kill a mother and an offspring on the same day. It's cruel to the animals. You're wiping out an entire lineage. So what can we do? So the Eliezer is Mahmir here, and he says, you bring out the first one, with having in mind that you're going to do shechita, so that's allowed. And the second one, you have to leave down in the cistern, and you send down food until after Yom Tov. Okay, so that to make sure it doesn't die. That's the most you can do. So you see, he's more machmir here, and saying that you can't save your property on Yom Tov. The Yoshua, however, is more mekel. He says you can use a subterfuge. What you do is first you pull up one of them and you say, I'm going to eat this one, and then after you pulled it up, you say, I changed my mind, I don't want to eat this one, and you go look down and say, oh, that one looks really nice and tasty, the one that's still, and you do a trick, and then you pick up the second one out of it. Now you saved both, and then you can't kill both, and then you decide whichever you want. You can go back to the first one, or you could do the second one. Okay, anyway, this doesn't seem to be very relevant, but we're looking for just one point, and the point is here is that the Yoshua is more lenient in saving property on Yom Tov, and that's why he would be the opinion here of this Mishnah that says you can make an exception, even though generally you don't go and gather the stuff that you put out up there and you set aside, but you can make an exception to money on Yom Tov, and the Eliezer is more machmir, and so he's the one that said you make a gezerah and everything is the same. If you can't do it on Shabbat, you cannot do it on Yom Tov. Right, so that's our first attempt at an answer. But then we reject this with the same reasoning we had a few tapim ago. Mimai, how do you know that they would, the Eliezer and the Yoshua would apply what they say there to our case? Dilmad kan la ka'amre the Eliezer atam ela de shalapan nesaha. La. Maybe the Eliezer said you have to leave one animal down in the cistern. He only said that he's stringent there because you can throw down food and keep it alive, so you won't actually lose it. Whereas if the fruit's on the roof and it starts raining, then you're going to lose out. So even the Eliezer might agree that you can take all the food and throw it into the skylight. And on the other side also, iname. Perhaps he only permitted saving both animals because you can do it through a loophole, trick. But in the case where you can't, and the throwing all the fruit down the chute, down the skylight, you're not doing any trick. Perhaps he would say that that's not allowed. So really, that case is completely irrelevant to our case, and you can argue it anyway. So we're going to reject that. Rather, we need another response. So again, we're looking for some way of explaining why, in general, we say Shabbat and Yom Tov are the same, but this Mishnah says that on Yom Tov you can save the dried fruit, and Shabbat you cannot save the dried fruit. And so our next second and final answer is going to be Rav Papa, La Kashya, Ha Bet Shammai, Ha Bet Hillel, Ditnan. Bet Shammai אומרים אין מוציאים את הקטן ואת הלולב ואת ספר התורה לרשות הרבים. Bet Hillel matirim. So here, this very fundamental Mishnah, Bet Shammai says that you cannot carry a child, even a lulav, even if you're taking it to Bet Knesset, this would be on Shabbat, or on Yom Tov, right? On Shabbat for sure you can't carry. It's even on Yom Tov, right? You can't take a lulav, you can't carry it to Bet Knesset, even a Sefer Torah. Why? Because you can only carry things that have to do with food, so food only. Whereas Bet Shammai says, once you're allowed to carry things that are for food, then you can carry everything else. So that's a very important machloket. If we apply this back to our case, we'll see that Bet Hillel is more mekel in moving things around. And in the case of the dried fruit, even though it's food, I'm not eating all the dried fruit in one day. This is going to be for the winter, right? So the dried fruit is like things that are katan lulav and sefer Torah. And Bet Hillel says, I can, just like I can carry those, so too I can move the dried fruit, And Bet Shammai would be the other opinion that says that there is no difference between Shabbat and Yom Tov, and I cannot save the dried fruit even on Yom Tov. And that's how we resolve it. It's an interesting resolution because it means that our main Mishnah that we started with and the Mishnah of En Ben are both Bet Shammai, right, and not Bet Hillel, whereas we would usually want our major sources to be like Bet Hillel. Okay, but anyway, that is the answer. The Gemara now questions this answer. Hold on, Bet Shammai was only talking about carrying outside. He wasn't talking about mukseh, and we're talking about a case of mukseh. So why are you applying carrying outside to mukseh? So the answer is fascinating. Tiltul gufeh lav mishum hosa'ah. He isn't moving a mukseh itself, a subcategory of carrying. Okay, so this really has to prompt your imagination, right? About the whole concept of mukseh in the first place. That mukseh is a subcategory of carrying. The idea is that you shouldn't carry things. If you go back to the earliest prohibition, not the or second earliest, right? Back in Nehemiah that we quoted yesterday, the Nehemiah says Nehemiah instituted all the laws of mukseh. Well, he doesn't explicitly say that. What it says in the Pesukim about Nehemiah is that he saw people carrying their merchandise to the gates of the city, to the shuk, and selling it there. And so he said, you're not allowed to do that. You can't carry. Well, he said you can't carry, but the Gemara attributes to him that he said you can't use mukseh. So it seems that moving things, even in private, even in your home, is an extension of carrying things from your domain to the public domain and within the public domain. So that's really a fascinating way to think of mukseh, an expansion of the prohibition of carrying. Okay, good. So we resolved all the questions that we had against Rava, first against Rabbah and then against Rava as well. And now we're going to bring a proof for Rava. Okay, good. He needs a little help after all those challenges. So Rav, the first generation Amora and Bavel, agrees with Rava, the fourth generation. I know that's backwards, but the point is that Rava said it, but now when we go back, we can see that Rav, we also assumed the same position of Rava. How do we know that? Damar Rav, and if Rav said it, that's a really good precedent. Damar Rav, mar shelo yiganev, zeo tiltul shelo letzorech. If I have a hoe out in the field and I move it because it's going to get stolen, that's the same as moving it from sun to shade. This so ta'ama, how come I can't move it? Because it will get stolen. But we can infer, since Rav only said that I can't move it for its protection, that means I can move it if I want to use the hoe for some other purpose, or if I just want that space where it was is allowed. And that accords precisely with Rava's more lenient approach. Okay, good. So now we have Rav on our side. Hold on, not so fast. We have another statement about Rav that is more stringent. Ini, really? Did Rav say that? We have a story. Rav Kana went to the home of Rav one time. And I guess they had no more chairs around. And so Rav, who's the host, said, bring a trap for Kahana to sit on. They'll sit on this, this animal trap. Hopefully the trap was already closed, or else, this could be dangerous, unless he really wanted to have a captive audience. Okay, so you see that a trap normally would be something that's mukseh. You can't trap animals on Shabbat. Delayed reaction. Okay, stay hidden. Okay, lav lememra de davar shemelachto leisur lesorach gufo in lesorach mekomo la. So a trap is generally davar shemelachto leisur. And yet Rav said you can go and bring the trap for him to sit on. So he specified, bring it so he could sit on it. Doesn't this teach us that I can use davar shemelachto leisur because I want to use it for a heter purpose? But if it was only for its spot, then I wouldn't be able to, right? I mean, it's hard to really derive that because he just said, bring it over so we can sit. I mean, that happened to be the case. Okay, but we're really reading into the story. Would that be the case? He said it out loud that that's the reason. Maybe he seemed to want to let everybody know that he's only allowed to bring the trap over because I'm going to use it for another purpose, but not because I wanted space. And that would seem to be against Rava, more like Rava. No, that's not necessarily how you have to read the story. Maybe he was saying, move the trap because Kana wants to sit there. So you have to move it away because I want that spot so Kana could sit there. So that actually is a lesorech mekomo. Or another answer, or he was in a spot where it was going to be ruined, and he said, move it away so that it wouldn't be ruined. And so, in fact, we can uphold that Rav and is a good precedent for Rava, the lenient opinion. And so that's good that we can have halacha will be like Rava. Okay, now Rav Mari, another story. Rav Mari Ramari once is a funny story. He had this some cushions out in the sun. He's worried that the cushions are going to ruin in the sun. They're going to get faded. He comes to Rava, the lenient opinion, and he asks him, can I move them? Yes, it's permitted. Right? Of course. Why did Rava say it's permitted? It's because you're allowed to use pillows. You can sit on them. You can lie down on them. And in that category, Rava says you can move it for any reason, even for protection. Okay, then Rav Mari says, Itli acharina. No, but I don't have to move them. I have other cushions. I don't need the cushions. So Rava says, you'll need them for guests that might come. And Rav Mari says, Itli nami la'orchim. I have plenty of pillows. I have enough for even if guests come. I don't need them. Rava says, finally, Amar le galit adatich, kirabasi bidalach. Okay, you have revealed that you want to follow Rabbah, right? You know, you keep asking for stringencies. So my pasak is for everyone else it's allowed. For you it's asur. You have to follow Rabbah, right? Some people they just can't take yes for an answer. Okay, so that's a fantastic story. Kind of like the showing. Some people have an ingrained idea of what's allowed and not allowed and are looking for chumrah. So even Rava could not convince him that it's okay. Amar Rabbi Abba Amar Rabbi Chiya Bar Asher Amar Rav. Again, Rav we're talking about. Mechabedot shel milta mutar letatelan b'Shabbat. Aval shetemara la. If you want to move these brooms that are either made out of cloth or clothing brooms for cloth, you're allowed to move them on Shabbat because you use them. You use them for heter purpose. Aval shetemara la. But if it's made from date palms, then you're not allowed because that's a regular broom. A regular broom that's used to sweep the floor. Remember, in those days they had dirt floors, and if you sweep the dirt floor, then you're covering up the holes, and that's called building. So obviously, a regular broom is isur, but a clothing broom is okay. All right, so that all makes sense. Now, Rabbi Al-Azar Omer, Af Shel Temara. That's all part of the Braita. All part of this Memra of Rav. Rav said there is distinction between the two. Rabbi Al-Azar says even a regular broom is okay. Is not mukseh. So now we have to wonder about this machloket. What case is it talking about? If I'm moving it, to use the broom for some permitted use or because I need the space. Then would Rav say that a regular broom I can't use for a heter purpose? Certainly he would say it's okay. We just established that Rav follows is the same opinion as Rava. So there'll be no reason to say that a regular broom is asur. So it can't be talking about the sorach gufos mekomo. Rav kana rather, it must be talking about I'm moving it because it's going to get stolen. It's going to get ruined, and I'm using it I'm saving it for its own purpose. If that's the case, how could Rabbi Elazar say that even a regular broom made out of I'm allowed to save? No one thinks that. Not even Rava thinks that a klish maftol isur can you save for its own protection. So you see the problem. We have a machloket here, and it doesn't make sense. The machloket doesn't make sense in either case. So we have to change the words a bit. Instead of Rabbi Elazar saying that he disagrees and thinks a broom is okay, he actually says he agrees. And so we're talking about a case of where I'm saving it for its own protection, and it's not allowed because it's a kli shemelachto leisur. And Rav and Rabbi Elazar agree that you cannot do that. But a brush, a clothing brush, which is a kli shemelachto leheter, that I could move even if it's for its own protection. Okay, so that concludes those all the different stages and the various proofs and disproofs of Rabbah and Rava that we discussed in that Mishnah. And we have one more Mishnah to speak about, which is this interestingly theoretical. It has theoretical ramifications of I have a full utensil and it breaks. So are the pieces of it still considered the same status as the full utensil, or does it change status now that it's broken? Mishnah teaches, Kol hakelim nitalin b'Shabbat, shibrehen nitalin imahen, u'b'bad shehu osin me'ayin melacha. So any vessel that can be moved on Shabbat, and it's not mukseh, so if it breaks, the pieces also can be moved as it could, as long as it's usable for some kind of melacha. Right? It has to be still useful in some way. For example, a large bowl that broke, I can take the pieces of the barrel of that and cover a barrel with it. Because it's still a big piece, I can cover a big hole with it. If a smaller glass vessel breaks, take a piece of that glass and use it as a cover for a jar. So you see, you're not using it for the same purpose, because originally they were used to hold something, and now it's being used as a cover, but it's still useful, so the pieces are not mukseh. The Biuda is more machmir. He says, Bilbad shehu asin me'ayin melachtan. Now instead of melacha, it has to be melachtan, which means you can use the pieces, they're not mukseh, as long as it's being used for the same purpose that it was used for when it was part of a full vessel. For example, shibre areva lasuk lotochan mikpa, v'shezechuchit lasuk lotochan shemen. Pieces of a large bowl, I can use it as a small bowl, a little soup bowl, but because it's now still the same use. Or a piece of a shard of glass, I can use it if I can still just put some oil in it. I can hold a little bit of oil, so still holding something, and that is considered the same use. But only that, not for a different use, because then it would be like a new vessel altogether if you were using it for a different use, right? Then doesn't keep the same status as the full vessel. Okay, so interesting machloket, and let's see how it plays out in various cases. What exactly are they discussing? Which issues does this apply to? Okay, right. The question is, when did this break? Right. If I have a full vessel, did it break on Shabbat or before Shabbat? And we're going to see the different variations. Shmuel says that this machloket between Tanna Kama and Rabbi Yehuda is only if it broke before Shabbat, and then Shabbat starts. The more savar me'ayin melachtan in me'ayin melacha acheret la. That the Rabbi Yehuda, the more machmir, says it can only be used for the same type of purpose, but not a different purpose. And that Tanna Kama says even any purpose, as long as it's useful. That was before Shabbat. But if it broke on Shabbat, everyone would agree that it's fine for any reason. Why? Because the status of mukseh clicks in at sunset, right when Shabbat starts. If something is not mukseh at sunset, then it's not mukseh for the whole Shabbat. And even breaking cannot change that status. So I had a full vessel when Shabbat started. All of its pieces and it breaks, it still retains the same status, and I can use it for any purpose. Only when it breaks before Shabbat, then I have to see, well, what is it? When it came into Shabbat, what was it usable? Was it usable? What was it usable for? And only if it's, and that's where that's more questionable. Okay, that's Shemuel's opinion. Motiv Rav Zutrai asks a question about the from a Braita, Masikin bekelim, ben masikin beshibrei kelim. It says on Yom Tov, if you want to throw, if you have some vessel, you want to just use it for the fire. So if it's a full vessel, that's okay. You can put it into the fire and burn it. But pieces of a vessel, you cannot. So you see here that on Yom Tov, right? So now this baraita itself, when is it talking about? When did it break? Nishtaberu emat. Ilema nishtaberu me'arev Yom Tov. Asim ba'almaninhu. If it broke before Yom Tov, then it's like kindling, right? I mean, if it broke beforehand, I don't need to have it in mind for anything. It doesn't have to be a kliya. It's just, anything that's flammable. I assume I can put it in. So there wouldn't be any problem. Wouldn't be any machloket there. Rather, it must be that it broke on Yom Tov, and yet it makes a distinction between whether it's broken or not, which means if it's broken, I can't. So you see that does make a difference if it breaks on Yom Tov, and this goes against Shemuel, who says everyone agrees if it breaks on Shabbat that that's not mukseh, right? This baraita goes against it. Rather, if we're going to teach that statement of Shemuel, we have to teach it in a different way. It's the opposite. They actually argue in the Mishnah about if it breaks on Shabbat. The Morsabar Mukhanhu, Morsabar Noladhu. Tanakama says it's still called Mukhan. Mukhan's the opposite of Mukseh, because in the beginning of Shabbat it was a vessel and it's Mukhan. So if it breaks, it keeps the same status. Whereas the Yehuda Savar Noladhu. Nolad means it's a new object that never existed before. It's like an egg that was laid on Shabbat. It didn't exist before. I can't use it. It's inherently Mukseh. So too, even though this vessel was around, once it breaks, it becomes something new, and therefore I cannot use it for any new purpose. I can still use it for an old purpose because that retains the status. If it was a bowl, if I can use it as a little bowl, that's okay. But I can't use it for new because that would be nolad. But if it broke before Shabbat, then this makes a lot of sense. If it broke before Shabbat, then as Shabbat enters, so the pieces, now before it could be used as a bowl, now it could be used as a cover. Good. Whatever it can be used for will enter Shabbat with that in mind. So everyone agrees that if it broke before Shabbat or Yom Tov, then it's not mukseh. Only if it's on Shabbat, that's where the machloket is. Does it keep its status and you can use it for any reason, or does it become a new status if you use it for a new reason? Okay, so almost done. Taneh hada masikin bekelim ben masikin beshibrei kelim. Now we have three baraitot that argue with each other, and they give every possibility, and we're going to have to resolve each one of them. And so Taneh hada was one baraitot that says masikin bekelim ben masikin beshibrei kelim. That's the one that we saw above, that you're allowed to burn full utensils, but not pieces of utensils if it broke on Yom Tov. And the second Braita says, you're allowed to burn full utensils and broken utensils. And the third Braita, I'm not allowed to burn not full vessels and not pieces of vessels. Okay, we have every possibility. Not yet we're going to say that they're not arguing, but rather they have different authors. I guess they are arguing, but we're going to resolve all of them. None of them are wrong. They just have different authors. Ha Rabbi Yehuda, ha Rabbi Shimon, ha Rabbi Nehemiah. The first one that says you can use full vessels but not broken vessels, that's Rabbi Yehuda of our Mishnah, who says, right, that you can use it only for the same purpose, but if it broke on Yom Tov, you cannot use it for a different purpose. And using it for fire would be a different purpose, so you can't. The second one is Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon says there is no mukseh at all on Yom Tov. He is always the most mekel regarding mukseh, and therefore you can burn anything. And the third one is Rabbi Nehemiah, who is the most mahmir, right? He's the one that says even something machtor le'eter you can't use for any other purpose. So therefore you cannot use something that is a vessel, even a full vessel. You're meant to hold stuff. You didn't have in mind It's not meant to be burned, so therefore you cannot burn it at all. You can't do anything with it. Okay, Amar Nachman, Hane libne de ishtayur mibinyana, sharet hatulinhu de chazul mizga alayhu. If you have some bricks, you have finished building a construction project, you have extra bricks, you can leave them, you can use them there, and you can move them because you can sit on them, right? Extra bricks, you leave them around and you sit on them. However, if you put them in a pile on the side, then that means they're mukseh, because you put them on the side. I'm going to use them for a future building project, and they're not just sitting around to sit on. Okay. Just 3-4 more paragraphs. Amar Rav Nachman Amar Shemuel, Hayres ketana mutalat altel bechaser, karmelit lo. We have 3 different opinions here regarding pieces of clay that are just around on the floor. If you go to an archaeological site in Israel, you see this thousands and thousands of little pieces of clay all around wherever people lived. So if you have some earthenware, right, earthenware shards, you can use it, move them and use them if they're in your courtyard. Because, you have them in mind, kind of. If they're in the courtyard, there's going to be things that in your courtyard, you're going to have a pot that you have to cover, so you're going to take one and put a cover on it. That makes sense in the courtyard. But in the Karmelit, and then in between, that's between the Shut Echid and Shut Rabim, no, because you're generally going to use them there. Rav Nachman dide amar afilu bekarmelit. He said, no, in Karmelit also you might use them, but in the main thoroughfare, then you're not going to use them. Those are mukseh. You can even use earthenware shards that are in the middle of B'shut Rabim. You kind of implicitly have them in mind, and you can use them and move them. As that Rava about the Tame, again, Rava is the most lenient, right? And so Rava actually did this himself, and we have a story. Rava ka'azil beritka de mechoza. One time he was walking in the street of Mechoza, that's where he lived. Itvasai mesanetina, and his shoe got all muddy. Ata shama'eh shekal haspa bekam mechapar le. So his servant came and took a piece of clay right from the floor, and he started cleaning off the shoe. Lechaper, we usually say is to atone, but it also means to clean, to cleanse. Here, he's literally cleaning the shoe. There are a bunch of other rabbis there, and they started yelling at the servants, "What are you doing? You can't use a piece of clay from Reshut Rabim. It's mukseh." So Rava is right there. Amar, he's the Rosh Hashiva. Amar, la mistaya'ad, la gemire, migmar name migmere. He said, you should be embarrassed. Not enough that you rabbis didn't learn anything, but now you're also teaching, right? You don't even know anything yourself. And now you're telling my servant it's not allowed? It is allowed. Ilu b'chaser havai, mi hava ka, mi lahava hazya lechasoye b'mana, achaneme aname hazya ledidi. As if I had a jar, I needed in the Shut Rabim, I needed to cover it. Wouldn't I be allowed to take something, a shard from the Shut Rabim and cover it? Here too, for me, it's useful. So I have it in mind and I am using it. So you see that he followed his own opinion that he would use earthenware shards even in the Shut Rabim. Good. Amar Rav Yehuda Shemuel megufat havit shenichteta mutar letaltel b'Shabbat. He says a sealed clay of a jug that was broken, you can move it on Shabbat. Again, another variation of a piece of something that fell off. And Shemuel says that Tanya Nemehachi. We even have a baraita that backs him up. Megufat shenichteta hi ushbareha mutar letaltela b'Shabbat. There you go, right? A clay seal. You can that came off. You can move it on Shabbat. What you can't do is then take something broken and break off a piece or smooth it out so that you can use it to cover a vessel or to of a bed to make it stable. You see, you're allowed to use shards of something that broke, but you can't fix them and make them, more perfect into something more usable, because then that's makeva patish. Then you're finishing it off. So you can't finish anything off. You can just use it as is. And if you threw it out into the garbage, that shows that you don't want it. So once you threw it in the garbage, then it becomes mukseh for sure. That's what the Baraita says. Then just one quick line about the Baraita. Hold on. Let's say I take my shirt and I throw it in the garbage. right? For some reason. And then I changed my mind, I want to use it. Does throwing in the garbage make anything mukseh? Right? It doesn't. It's still a utensil, even if I happen to throw it in the garbage for some reason. Or if I threw it out, into the garbage, this piece of clay or anything the day before, that means I'm not going to use it, sir. I'm not going to use it anymore on Shabbat. If I want to change my mind later and after Shabbat and take it out of the garbage, then it'll become useful again. But if I throw it out on Shabbat itself, then that doesn't change the designation, because at the beginning of Shabbat it was a utensil, so therefore throughout the entire Shabbat it will still remain a utensil. Baruch Adonai Olam, Amen.